We have got a shiny new fusion in Watcher of Realms. It is this gorgeous man here, Thunkles, and he is a very, very exciting unit for all players still progressing through this game. He immediately becomes arguably the best anti-healer in the game, and he's an epic. That makes him an easy investment, that makes him easy to build, and you should go get him right now. Let me tell you everything you need to know about Thunkles and why you should absolutely not skip this fusion.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Today, Watcher of Realms is kicking off its first hero fusion in the game in a long time. We are actually getting a fusion event for a hero. This will be a shard summoning event for a brand new epic named Thunkles. And Thunkles immediately will become one of the strongest epics for progression in all of Watcher of Realms. So in this video, we're going to close out of the official game and head on to the test server. I'm on the Fastidious test server, and I've already got my Thunkles all skilled out. I'm going to break down his kit for you and tell you why he is an absolute priority to get if you are still progressing through certain key pieces of content in Watcher of Realms. This guy is the start of something special in the game. For too long, special abilities, special skills, certain mechanics have been gated behind exclusively legendary heroes. And Thunkles is turning that on its head. He is very, very powerful. He brings tremendous anti-heal. And all in all, it's just a very strong special kit, especially for an epic. And remember, because he's an epic, he will be really easy to bring to A5, and you absolutely want to do that. And he's going to be really cheap to skill up, because everyone should have a lot of epic dust and epic skill crystals lying around. If you don't, it just means you're newer to the game. It will come really fast, really soon. Don't worry. So let's get right into it. No further intro needed. What makes Thunkles so good? Well, what makes a tank good in Watcher of Realms? You want that unit to have some kind of natural tankiness, some way to increase their stats, scale higher, more HP, more defense, stuff like that. Then you want the unit to have some way of mitigating incoming damage. You really like to look for an ability that allows the tank to avoid or delay death. And finally, you really want to see some extra utility, a special debuff, some kind of crowd control effect, something special and extra like that. Well, Thunkles brings all of that to the table in one glorious epic package, and on top of that, as a bonus, another thing we look for in tanks, extra block. And he's got it. And that is, at its core, the #1 thing we like for a tank to do. So he is doing so many awesome things. Let's go through his stats now and then his kit. So let's start with the worst thing about him. Let's get it out of the way. He is an epic hero, and epic heroes definitely have inferior stats to legendary heroes in Watcher of Realms. It's one of the biggest reasons that epics don't scale well deep into the game, and that's because they're just so outpaced in terms of base stats by their legendary counterparts. On top of that, the legendaries tend to be much better anyway, but the stats is a big issue, and he's no exception. These stats are good enough, and he actually scales incredibly well with some special effects in his kit. He's got a very, very useful ultimate for getting these stats higher, and he has a very good awakening that we're going to cover. And with him, I'm going to really spend some time on awakenings because he is a unit you will want to invest epic soulstones into. Also, remember, with this shard summoning fusion event, if you stay on top of all the events and Oracle's trials, maybe you also place high, #1, #2, #3 in some of those tournaments, some of those Oracle's trials, you can get enough shards very often to fuse 2 copies. To be seen if that's the case, if they allow that this fusion event, but if they do, that would save you an epic soulstone, which could be important, especially if you have a younger account and you don't have a ton of epic soulstones saved. I know a lot of us probably do. I, for example, just checked and I have 122, but don't worry, you'll get them soon enough, and he is definitely an epic worth investing in if you're still in the early game and you don't have enough to bring him to a higher awakening right away. But yes, he is an epic. His base stats are much lower than his legendary counterparts. This is pretty respectable at almost 23,000 HP. You know, it's nothing compared to like a Cadgrim at like 31,000 or Regulus at 29,000 or whatever. But it's something, and it does scale very well with his kit. And then finally, we've got defense over here, which comes in at just over 3,200. Believe it or not, that's equal to units like Azor, for example, and some defense-based tanks, which is counterintuitive, but it's kind of how the game works. but it's definitely less than someone like Crodor, who has like 1,000 defense, or maybe even more than that. They're respectable stats, they're not very good stats. Everything else, though, is really good. He has the standard base block for a tank of 3. He's 1 cost cheaper than legendary tanks, because that's typical with epics. He's only 18 cost. He's got a great attack interval at 2.4 seconds, which is fairly standard for tanks, but for his kit especially, it's very useful. We'll see that in a second. And he's got a nice rage regen auto. The rage regen based off of attack is fairly standard, though we wish it was higher. This is how he builds rage when he gets hit with an attack, and rage regen percentage is going to scale off of this and this, but it's a fine set of stats. It is not special. The rest of the kit, though, especially for an epic, is very special. So let's start quickly with the talent. I said a good tank is going to have some form of damage mitigation, and he has got that here with his ability to put out the damage reduction debuff. This is a mark, a debuff you put on the enemy, and it reduces the damage that enemy is able to deal. So this is the kind of debuff that scales very well into harder content in the game. If we go to the hero list on my website, you can see the address right there if you want to check it out. We got the link in the description, but we can sort by debuffs. We can go to damage decrease, and we can see what kind of units put this out. So Alistair's got it. Cassiel, Draga is the only epic right now who has it, but she's not very usable. On the other hand, Thunkles is very usable. You got Init, he's a great free-to-play option. Cadgram can sometimes put it out. Lady Alex, Numera, Volca. So we have options, but it is a fairly rare debuff, and he puts it out in a pretty cool way. So whenever he is hit, anytime he's taking damage, he has a 30% chance to put that debuff out, and he makes it so the enemy deals 30% less damage, and he actually has the strongest version of this debuff in the game. Other units also have minus 30%, but if we look at the other epic who has damage decrease, who has the damage reduction debuff, that is going to be Draga, and hers is only 20%. So immediately, Thunkles ties the top legendaries, and he becomes the best epic at putting out this debuff. This is a very useful debuff to put out in content like Abyss 1, Apocalypse 1, Apocalypse 2, all the Semra fights, and also just in any progression content where you want to survive. And honestly, you are going to want him to survive because he's your tank, and he's tanking all the hits, and he's blocking everyone. So let's continue on now. Very good talent. The A1, really simple. Without skill ups, it's just going to say deals damage to one enemy, but with skill ups, he gains the ability to restore bonus rage every 4 basic attacks. So you get 3 extra rage per 4 basics with each skill up, so in total, every 4 basics, once he's skilled up, you're getting 6 more ticks of rage. That's not a ton, but it's definitely something, and it helps you cycle into his very strong and powerful ultimate. And I'm going to tell you right now, this passive over here is strictly just an extension of his ultimate. This passive, Butcher's Frenzy, is just, hey, these other cool things also happen when he's ulting. Let's start with this because it's directly tied to his ultimate and its duration. When he is ulting, his block increases by 1. So his base block goes from 3 to 4. So if you had him in a Bastion Ring artifact, his block would rise from 3 to 4 to begin with, because this gives you an extra block. And then when he's ulting, it would rise from 4 to 5. And that is very, very good, especially for an epic hero. On top of that, each one of his basic attacks is going to restore 15% of his max HP. Now, his HP is not that high, but it's very important, and as you're about to see in the ultimate, his HP gets a lot higher. And as you're about to see in the Awakenings, his HP gets a lot higher. Not just from the A2, he also has a special mechanism to permanently boost his max HP. So I said, remember, his attack interval would be relevant and you would want to put out speed on him, and that is because of this. He is healing himself during the ultimate, and the frequency of that is dependent upon his basic attacks. He's picking up extra rage from basic attacks, and the best part of his kit, his anti-healing, he's putting that out AoE and refreshing the debuff with his basic attacks. So the ultimate, Deep Cleave, it comes with all these amazing bonuses from the passive Butcher's Frenzy, but on top of that, it's got some great stuff to it. It has 500 initial cost, which is quite good. It gets him close to being able to ult upon deployment. It's only 800 cost, which is fairly cheap, especially considering how strong this is, and it has a very nice 15-second duration, which, with Awakenings, can actually be longer. So once he casts his ultimate on top of these bonus effects, he is going to increase his max HP by 40. That is a pretty big boost. We see bigger boosts with certain legendary heroes, but all in all, this brings him past the legendary range. So with normal base HP of just under 23,000, so like 22,900, if we want to raise that by 40%, we can multiply it by 140%, so 1.4, you can see this brings his max HP to 32,060. If you had a good build on him and you leaned heavily into HP, which is what you should do, you easily could build him up to like 80,000 HP, if not 90, 95,000, but let's just say 80,000 because it's a younger account, you're progressing, whatever. That's going to bring his max HP to 112,000. And remember, from the Awakenings, it will get higher, but this is a great equalizer on his ultimate to make his HP relevant so long as he's ulting. On top of that, he grows his attack range. So his standard attack range is this interesting little hammer. He has his tile, and then it's a 3-tile row in front of that and a 3-tile row in front of that. When he ults, he gets a third 3-tile row, so he has this perfect 3x3 square in front of him that he can hit. Having a good range here is really good because, as we can see with the basic, he's only dealing damage to one enemy, but when he's ulting, he now will deal damage to 8 enemies. We don't really care what the damage is. You're not going to build him as a damage dealer, but all of that damage, all of those hits on the 8 enemies will inflict anti-healing. And this anti-healing has a 3-second duration. Once we go through the Awakenings now, you will see if you've got him awakened, that fact actually makes him one of the 2 heroes in the game with the longest anti-heal duration, full stop. So let's go to the Awakenings now. You can see it's a fairly simple kit. You know, we've got a 1-sentence talent, only 3 skills, but each one of these things has a lot to it. Now with the Awakenings, these are clean. You are gonna want them. I told you his HP could get higher, not just from the A2, where he gets plus 1200 HP. That is very good, scales very well because his base HP is low to begin with, but he also gets a big HP boost already from A1. Whenever an enemy dies in his range, he's going to increase his max HP by 2%, and he can stack this 16 times. So if we think about content he will excel in as an anti-healer, Gear Dungeon 1 is a great example. In Gear Dungeon 1, when dealing with the bottom lane, many players will employ a strategy leaning on anti-healing. And those waves in Gear Dungeon 1 come with 8 units at a time, and that's not counting the first 2 archers who come by. If we just focus on those 8 units, those first 2 waves of 8 units, once those waves are done, he's already had 16 kills in his range, right? So already he has stacked this 2% max HP increase 16 times. So his HP is further increased permanently by 32%. Then he picks up more base HP at A2. That's very nice. At A3, I told you, for a lot of content, for a tank to be special, they need some kind of delay death, ignore death, unkillable mechanic, and he gets unyielding at A3. Upon taking fatal damage for the first time, this can only be triggered 1 time per deployment, he will gain a 6-second period of unyielding where he cannot die. During that time, you can heal him back up, and he is good to go. This is once per deployment. It is very good. This makes him a lot more usable and a lot more strats. At A4, his damage mitigation increases. He's now going to reduce all incoming damage by 5%. And finally, at A5, I told you the ultimate would last longer. This A5 makes his ultimate last not just 15 seconds, but an additional 5 seconds, bringing it to 20 seconds. Throughout that ultimate, he is hitting 8 enemies at a time, constantly reapplying anti-healing, which lasts 3 seconds. So 20 seconds plus 3 seconds. That effectively is just about a 23-second duration on anti-healing. I say just about because it depends upon when the last hit happened, but that is really good, 23 seconds, and it directly ties Artemis for the longest anti-heal in the game. He puts out anti-healing on 8 enemies when he's ulting, which lasts 20 seconds, and his duration is also 3 seconds. Let's compare that to some other anti-healers. Lasir is officially dead to us, right? Lasir is so out now, it is crazy. His duration is only going to be 15 seconds on 1 singular bursty hit. He can hit more targets than Thunkles and Artemis, but no, that is definitely weaker than them, and who wouldn't go for the easy, free-to-play epic option over investing into Lasir's freaking ultimate? I mean, to get those extra 5 seconds, you need at least 2 skill ups into the ultimate. Even Demi, who's a great anti-healer, her ultimate only lasts 18 seconds, and the duration on her anti-heal is only 2 seconds. So she's 3 seconds behind. 18 plus 2 is 20. That's 3 seconds behind Artemis and Thunkles at 23. So guys, I hope I've made my points clear. Thunkles is incredibly good. One final thing I want to mention is he also has a really unique edge over those other anti-healers as the only one who is a melee unit. So if you think of content like Gear Dungeon 1, you're actually freeing up a platform space. You might have to work a little harder getting him to survive in Gear Dungeon 1 when compared to, for example, a Brokir or a Cadgrum or someone, Malvira, someone really tanky. But it will be worth it because you've got your anti-healer on the ground. Now you have an extra platform spot for another DPS or a crowd control unit, something like that. So that is very cool. He also naturally will be able to hit everyone in front of the wall in Gear Raid 1, right? So that's going to be really good. He's got those 3 tiles in front of him twice for basics and 3 tiles in front of him 3 times for the ultimate. So he should be really relevant. You see me pointing out content. If you want to see him in content, either tomorrow or the next day, very likely tomorrow, I will make a showcase guide on him where I walk you through Gear Dungeon 1 and Gear Raid 1 and really, flaunt him. We'll get him in action. It will be pretty cool. The final thing I actually want to say before we end the video, I forgot to mention Zealous. Zealous is probably all in all the best anti-healer in the game, not for the ability of his anti-heal, but just because he's also a crazy unit. It's kind of him and Demi, but I like his range better. I think Zealous has become very OP since his buff several months ago. You can see if you get his exclusive artifact, which is easier said than done, but if you get it, all his damage dealt during the ultimate will inflict anti-healing. His ultimate is very short at 10 seconds, but if you get his exclusive artifact, it makes it last an additional 10 seconds. So this is a 20-second anti-heal. It ties him with Demi. Thunkles and Artemis still have the longest one, and still, Thunkles remains the only melee anti-healer in the game. So, tomorrow we are going to test out Thunkles in Gear Dungeon 1 and in Gear Raid 1. Look forward to that. If you guys have any other suggestions or places you want to see him, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this in the future and using it as a guide, you can already find the showcase linked in the pinned comment and the description below. Share with your mother, guys. I've been Fastidious, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.